Welcome, everybody, to our second session of our Impact Awards series. We are thrilled to be joined today from our colleagues from Swarthmore College and the community of Chester. They are going to be sharing with us how they are building sustainable communities through their advisory board. Please go ahead and come on in the session and join us for our conversation today. I am excited to be joined by Ashley Henry and her colleagues. I'm going to turn it over to Ashley so that we can jump right into our conversation, and she's going to introduce the rest of her panelists today.
Thank you so much, Laura, and good morning, everyone. My name is Ashley Henry, and I am the Assistant Director at the Lang Center for Civic and Social Responsibility at Swarthmore College. And as Laura mentioned, myself, along with Ben Berger, the Lang Center's Executive Director, and our Chester partners that you see here as panelists, we really are truly honored to be recipients of a Campus Compact Award. And today we're excited to be here with you to share some of our insights and lessons learned through our institution's efforts to build sustainable community partnerships with our neighbors in Chester, Pennsylvania. During our presentation, we have a few slides here. We're going to be looking at a few things. So first, we look forward to providing some statistics about Swarthmore College as an institution. That'll include a little bit about our geographic location and our campus composition. Next, we want to introduce our center's role in connecting the college's curricular excellence to engagement with communities. Third, we'll discuss how the Chester-Swarthmore Fellows Council was born and have an opportunity to hear directly from some of our fellows about their experiences as both advisors to and partners of the college. And then we look forward to taking a few questions from you. So we want to welcome you through the front doors of the Lang Center at Swarthmore, and we hope that what you hear today will inspire you in your work and continued engagement with community partners. So next, we'll have Ben Berger, our Executive Director, who will begin with an introduction to Swarthmore and discuss our philosophy and approach to our engagement with Chester. So Ben?
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks to Campus Compact again. We're all honored by this. And we've really benefited for a long time in sharing what we're doing today, sharing with other campuses and communities to figure out how they do stuff, to figure out how we can do stuff better as well. I'm not going to talk a lot about Swarthmore College in particular because you can find stuff out about us on the web. We're a small liberal arts college, about 1,700 students. The town is quite small, about 6,000 people, but we're near some very big cities. Philadelphia, Camden, and the one closest to us with whom we work most closely, Chester, PA. About 37,000 people, something like that. About a 12-minute bus ride away from Swarthmore College. We have a long time history of working with Chester partners, but I want to stress that there's a lot of people out there from different kinds of colleges and universities. We're on the smaller side, and we're in a suburban setting, but near an urban setting as well. The next slide, Ashley. So Swarthmore College is known, I think, for both rigorous academics and also for a commitment to social justice. And we've been blessed then by the Eugene M. Lang Center for Civic and Social Responsibility and its resources that helps us to bring those two things together, academic rigor and social responsibility, community engagement. The Lang Center has been around for over 20 years, and we work under the rubric of engaged scholarship to bring together faculty, staff, students, community partner, alumni, to combine curriculum along with sort of the social good. The next slide. This is the overview of where we are. You see Philadelphia looming quite big over there on the right. Camden is just to the east of that there. Swarthmore looks like a bigger circle than really it. It's tiny, but I had to show it there somehow. Chester is down below it, quite a bit larger. Geographically, it's almost the same size as Camden, a little bit smaller than that. Population is about half of that. We're quite close together geographically, but we're not an anchor. Widener University is in Chester. We are not in Chester. And we have a small number of students and employees so we're not the kind of traditional anchor. I would call us a mini anchor or more likely a buoy institution. We try to lift up great things that are going on already in Chester for the betterment of both communities. Next slide. This is just an overview of Chester. You see itself, that's the kind of 3 miles around long. We have decided to focus on an area right in the middle. It's spread out geographically, we're tiny. So I'll talk about that more in a minute, but right in the middle of that area is a neighborhood called Overtown that we've been focusing on. The next. So this is just briefly our approach to the Lang Center and Civic and Social Responsibility to working with Chester. We've worked in and with Chester for quite a long time. However, I want to skip right to the challenges because it's not about applauding ourselves or anything like that. We found out over a long period of time that we often would work with large organizations, like many colleges and universities do, that weren't themselves led by people who were either from Chester or who had deep roots here. And that seemed to be a difficulty for us. We also had largely worked on the educational system because we've got a Department of Educational Studies, and that was a natural match. But our goal, when Ashley and I have been there for the last 10 years or so, has been to spread it across the liberal arts and not just work in educational studies. When we say stretched capacity as a small institution, it's because there's only so much we can do. We can't be everywhere at one time. We don't want to be a mile wide and an inch thin. So we thought about how do we then focus our efforts in an intentional way. There are limitations on faculty time, so the center needs to do a lot of the legwork with community partners beforehand to set up partnerships. And lastly, and I know this is something that many people who are participants here are familiar with, we've all seen this happen in higher ed, the phenomenon that's sometimes called disparagingly drive-by volunteerism. It's not, that doesn't come with bad intention, it's good intentions, but people often only volunteer for the time that a class lasts. And that can actually not just help, but it could harm, because especially working with young people and they get used to you being there for a semester and then you leave, it's not good. It's not good for relationships. We wanted to overcome that. And it turned out that this Fellows Council was the beginning of really a breakthrough. Next slide. So I want to wrap up with my section right now by just saying that we tried in the campus compact model to look at other institutions and see what they were doing. Western Washington had a really great model that we liked, that worked with, it's much bigger than us, and they work with a lot of different partners in the community as well as faculty for a year at a time. Also, COVID spurred us on because we wanted to be able to enrich classes. Classes all stunk during COVID because they were remote. How do you make that better? Well, you bring in people with actual great experience and knowledge that's outside of just the classroom. That was the beginning, really, of the seeds of this. And we also decided we needed to work with people like those folks here, folks who are from Chester, either have still lived there now or lived there for many years and live nearby now, but those who have long, deep roots, social capital, political capital, who know things, because they're the ones who should be teaching us about Chester, not just us teaching our students about that, and we're not from there. Last slide. It's just going to be you. I guess this is, why don't we segue to you, Ashley, and talking about this as the overarching thing there. Yeah.
Thank you, Ben, for that. So as Ben was mentioning, it really was COVID that spurred us on to think about how we were engaging with the city of Chester and how we could make sure that we were enhancing our educational goals at the institution. And so with this new approach to really having intentional, deep engagement in the city of Chester, post-COVID in fall of 2021, when in-person activity resumed at the college, well, we decided to launch what we call the Chester-Swarthmore Fellows Council. And so as you can see here, we began with 8 Chester partners, 4 of whom we had already been working very closely with for some time, and 4 who we wanted to partner with more closely. And so what was the mission of the council? Well, just kind of simply put, we wanted it to be an advisory board of keyword compensated Chester resident leaders who work with the Lang Center and by extension, our faculty and staff to really inform and contextualize our engagements in Chester, Pennsylvania. And so this council was created to drive and to shape our ongoing and future relationships and partnerships in the city. So who are the individuals that we invited to lead this charge of transformational change for the college? Well, it was very important to us, as Ben mentioned, that those members had a history in Chester, because who better to advise us on the present and future needs of Chester than the people who are from Chester, right? So the 8 inaugural members are Chester natives, so educated in the Chester Upland School District, many of whom still live in Chester, and all who are currently leading organizations in Chester at the forefront of delivering services to the community. And so because of this, each member again, had both wide and deep local roots in the city that really helped to provide the college with a truer and fuller understanding of the most pressing and ongoing issues facing the community. And also, they gave us access to a deeper network of people and organizations with whom we could partner. And so, in addition to just having these wide and deep local roots, we were also very intentional about making sure that our members really represented a diversity of expertise throughout the city. And so, these 8 members, as you see here, they bring a wealth of knowledge and expertise. They're tackling issues that address gun violence prevention, public health risks in the city, environmental justice, economic development, real estate development, and so on. So let's talk a little bit about when the council convenes. The schedule we established at the outset was to meet quarterly as a group, and we did this for the first few years. We would identify a mutually convenient time, generally in the evenings on a weekday, to meet, to share a meal, and to discuss priorities. But this format has morphed a bit since we first started. At present, we meet more frequently, sometimes in quarterly, in smaller groups as we work on multiple priorities concurrently. Now, in regards to the schedule of engagement, the council is active all year round, including the summer. So when classes are in session around September to May, fellows are participating again as compensated co-educators and guest speakers in our Swarthmore classes. They're mentoring students in their Chester-based experiences, and they're attending Chester-related programming on campus as both guests and speakers, and they're meeting with our staff and faculty. And then in the summer, which is generally June through August for us at Swarthmore, fellows are supervising students and they're Lang-funded internships over the summer, and they're helping to advise us on curricula for the upcoming academic year. So what are some of the specific objectives of the council? Well, first, it's to co-develop a long-term transformational strategy that will allow the college to respond to the most pressing priorities in the community. So that means that when we're together, we're looking at a landscape, the entire landscape of needs in the community over an extended period of time. And then the council is making recommendations for long-term partnerships that are not only going to have impact, but really sustain that impact. So again, we're thinking long term. Another objective was to consult again on our place-based initiative. So I helped to oversee 2 programs, one during the academic year, the ChesterSemester, which comprises a fall course and a full year Chester-based internship opportunity. And the second is the Chester Community Fellowship, which is a 10-week full-time summer internship experience. And the council has done wonderfully providing recommendations to me for internship placements with organizations in the city on topics that our course curriculum should be addressing, like redlining and the political machine in Chester. And so they really provide value there through that objective. And then finally, the council members advise us on how to prepare students for their engagement in Chester, right? Students need to be oriented. They can't just go into the city blind without really knowing how to interact. And so they receive ongoing training on ethical engagement, cultural sensitivity, just the importance of showing up. And again, they do a wonderful job of really helping us to shape our student training programs. So what's the approach when we're working with our council? Well, as an institution, Swarthmore really endeavors to stand behind and alongside our community partners to prioritize their needs. And so we're very intentional about making sure that our students are engaging with the council in terms of the projects that they're doing so that these projects are meeting real needs in real time. Active listening, we all know, is important. So when we're working with council members, we want to make sure that, again, we're listening and learning the landscape. We can't know what the community needs before we actually listen. And our fellows you'll hear today are very passionate about their city and have a lot to say about where the work can begin. So we appreciate that. Um, One of the things I love about the council members is that they really respect the knowledge that resides in our faculty and the skill and ambition that our students bring. And then likewise, at the college, we do our best to really center their lived experiences, their longtime expertise as community members. And we do that not as an alternate perspective on a particular issue. They are the authority on many of the issues, right? And I think that sometimes what happens with community members is that their experiences get discounted, right, as less valuable than research and hard data, right? Their voices may have even been silenced over time. And so this approach of mutual respect goes a long way in helping us to maintain high morale, building trust and friendship between our groups. And then finally, we have a very ultimate goal of co-creating solutions to issues that just simply couldn't exist outside of the collaboration. So we have a very strong focus on co-generating new knowledge as a council. So these are some of our objectives here. Oops. Let's talk a little bit about ethics, right? So probably one of the most important considerations when thinking about having an advisory council of this type, we really want to make sure that the work that we do with our communities is done responsibly and ethically. And so the values and ethical standards that this council helps Swarthmore to adhere to is that, again, we're maintaining this understanding that not all knowledge resides on campus. So we want to continue to place value on lived experience. We want to seek expertise from our off-campus partners outside of campus. And when we're doing that, again, as we've mentioned, you should be thinking, do you have a structure in place for compensating your community partners in the same way that our faculty and college staff are compensated? It's really an important consideration to think about in regards to ethical engagement. The recommendations of the council on how Swarthmore is, and continues to do its work really helps to integrate the voice of our community neighbors into the college's institutional and educational goals. And we think that that's key, right? Because what we do as institutions, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. And so we should be considering input from our local communities who are inevitably impacted by our work and our operations. And then finally, having the council really ensures that at Swarthmore, our engagement with Chester is rooted in trust, accountability, mutuality, and community-defined priorities. So what have we accomplished so far? Well, we talked about it a little bit. The fellows continue to be regular co-facilitators in the classroom across a number of departments. So our environmental studies programs, Black studies, peace and conflict studies, and religion. They've helped to redesign the curriculum for my course, the ChesterSemester Fellowship, which really has a renewed focus on pressing environmental justice issues and economic development in the city with a focus on the arts, which has been really special. And then the council has really helped to identify pressing local needs that the college can directly engage their resources with. And by resources, I include in that utilizing the college's human capital, not always financial. One example that comes to mind is the council identified the need for better access to sustainable funding for our community organizations. And so in response, the Lang Center collaborated with our Director of Institutional Relations to offer a grant writing workshop for nonprofit leaders. And this really helped to provide them with some actionable strategies for accessing federal funding. And so when we think about kind of long-term projects, Dr. Kristen Ball-Motley, who is here, has really helped us to think about linking some of our programs for year-round student engagement in Chester. And so she has a lead task force initiative that has engaged a number of my ChesterSemester students during the academic year. She has one student through CCF for the summer. And we have a student, a Lang Opportunity Scholar, who's received multi-year funding from us to work on this issue with Chester partners through Dr. Motley and others. So we just really appreciate some of these achievements that they've had. And so what has been the impact for us at the college? Well, our course content has been enhanced. We've increased engagement among our faculty who are really grounding their teaching now in a local context. The college is better able to direct its resources to address the most pressing community needs. And our students are able to engage with complex social issues alongside those who are directly impacted. And that really helps them to integrate theory in the classroom with practice as part of their scholarship. So I really can't wait for you to hear from the fellows because they're going to share with you from their side what the impact has been from them and for the Chester community. So just very quickly, I want to look at this map of Overtown. We kind of scaled out a little bit, but this was the potential that we saw in the Overtown area. It was a local transportation hub. There were restaurants, up and coming artist spaces, a public library, and central to many of the community nonprofits and grassroots organizations we wanted to work with. And really, as a result of our work with the council, we have been able to manifest that potential. And so now we have meeting spaces here at the Indigo Mills Artist Warehouse where Ben Berger and Devin Walls are right now. We have vendor agreements with some of the restaurants where faculty, staff, and students can use their one cards that has their dining meal points to be able to support the local economy. And we have a number of partnerships with the City of Chester, Chester City Hall, CEF, and the Downtown Cat Center here.
Actually, let me just add that the one adjective in there is locally owned. What we love about Overtown too, there's a lot of locally owned businesses, buildings, artist galleries, and so on like that. And that's made a big difference for us in terms of feeling we're really working with the community as well.
Beautiful. That's really important. Devin's going to talk a little bit about that hopefully too. So as we move forward, here's a nice little highlight. This is one of our Chester vendors, owner of Duo Tacos and Bowls, where students can use their one cards. And so that's kind of like a zoom in on what the block looks like and some of the nice partnerships that the council has helped us to create. So some future goals that we just want to share with you very, very quickly. We intend to rotate the council membership to ensure that new perspectives and partnerships continue to shape our community engagement practices. We want to increase our faculty engagement. We want to host more community workshops for nonprofits so that they can more broadly benefit from our resources and really have a better and enhanced capacity to deliver on their missions. And then we do something that we find is very important, an evaluation every 2 years. It's called our Community Partner Assessment Project. It's a way for us to really learn more about where we're having impact and where we're not. And we hope to use those results to then guide the work of the council in future years. So I'll wrap up by just offering some recommendations based on what we've learned on our journey to building a community advisory board. Number one, advisory boards, they have to be two-way. They really do. They require frequent consultation and communication that's initiated by both the institution and the board members. And so I just want to say, sometimes we'll only consult an advisory board on an as-needed basis, but really kind of setting up some guidelines at the outset that encourage regular and mutual exchange is very important. Be intentional about who you invite to join your board. Think about how each member might fill a gap in knowledge and expertise at the institution or enhance your current engagement through new opportunities. Think about who else needs to be at the table. So, what faculty or staff can meet with council members? Does your advisory board perhaps have recommendations for other community members that should be a part of the conversation? Understand that members' availability and priorities may change, right? This is a living, breathing relationship that we have with our communities. And so not everyone that maybe you start with is who you'll end with. Some might have different capacities for how they can be involved, but really just looking back at bullet 2, try to choose members that you either already have an active relationship with or those who can be committed to the collaboration. And we recommend for at least 1 year to really make some progress. As we mentioned, maybe consider rotating the membership to introduce new voices, And then it's certainly not least, even though it's listed here, but determining a compensation structure that aligns with your institution's practices and values. So we believe that advisory boards should be compensated for their time and expertise. And so don't leave that out of the equation. Let it be central to your mission. So now we want to hear directly from the fellows, and I believe Dr. Kristen Ball Motley will begin. And Kristen, I'd love for you to begin by telling us a little bit more about your leadership in Chester and your experience being a longtime partner with the college.
Thank you, Ashley. Good morning, everyone. I first like to congratulate Ben and Ashley on receiving this very prestigious award. Very well done and well deserved to both of you and your entire team. I'm Dr. Kristen Motley. I am the Health Commissioner for the City of Chester, and I'm also the founder and executive director of the nonprofit Health Educated. So I get to work with Swarthmore College in both of those capacities as a public health official and as a nonprofit leader. I first worked with Swarthmore College through my nonprofit where I hosted their students who take the Chester semester course that Ashley mentioned. I've worked in academia and served as a preceptor and field supervisor for college students for over 15 years. So it's very natural for me to plug students directly into my workflow. And that's exactly what I do. So when students intern with me, they are involved in every aspect of my work. They are creating programs, they're writing grant proposals, they're attending meetings, including board meetings and meetings with legislators. Two of my former students are currently in paid positions with me. And so it really has served as a pipeline program for my nonprofit, which has been wonderful. Then my involvement with Swarthmore College as a public health official started when their Black alumni network made a commitment to addressing a poverty issue in Chester. And for me, that came down to one of the many environmental problems that Chester faces, but for me, it was lead. And so they helped me to start the Chester Lead Task Force, which has now grown to over 50 members in less than a year. We meet regularly and we get a lot of work done. Through that initiative, we not only get the support of their alumni, but also their students as well as their faculty. They have helped bring in or help us to secure funding through writing letters of support for grant opportunities, as well as through facilitating access to funding from their own employers. Their alumni help with that, and they also make direct donations to our campaigns. What I really appreciate about the partnership is that they are very intentional about the match that they make for the interns. They do a great job in making sure that the interns that are matched to me have an interest in public health or in healthcare. And I also like that I get to tap into their professors when I have questions about content that I just need some extra support in. And the last thing I say is they are really intentional about who they're helping. And they chose Chester. And for all of us on the call as the fellows, we appreciate that. It's easy to go into a community that is well resourced, but it takes a real one to commit to a place like Chester where the love and the passion from the community is there, but the infrastructure is not always there. And so thank you for making that commitment in Chester. And if any of the other colleges are looking into collaborating with communities in your region, I would challenge you to look for places that need the most help. Don't just pick the low-hanging fruit. Be willing to roll up your hands, jump over the hurdles, and do what it takes to get the job done in places that need it the most. I'm at a conference today, actually, so I have to hop off to attend a workshop, but I know that you're in for a treat because all the other partners are doing some amazing work. I'll put my email in the chat in case any of you have questions for me afterwards. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Well done. And thank you so much for your partnership. Beautiful. So now could we hear from Jim Turner, a little bit more about yourself, your leadership experience, and a little bit about the potential for vocational training as part of our collaboration with the college.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. So I'm Jim Turner. Been around Chester for a while. I'm the president of the Dunamis Marketing, which is a production and placement, media placement organization, and I sit on too many boards, but I'm excited to be a part of what we're doing at Swarthmore from a professional standpoint. And the reason why I got involved with all this is I'm the former director of economic development for the city of Chester, and worked with them in that role during a time when the city was on an upsurge, and have since stayed along with it through the challenges that it's currently facing. We helped to start the Chester Microenterprise Partnership, which is a institution that works with small businesses to help them get started and to grow, as well as we sit on, just to mention, the Chester Business Association. And so my focus many times is around economic development and how we can really change the community and keep it in pace with all the other things that are happening throughout the world. And so we've worked with Swarthmore, and actually it's kind of crazy. Before Ben, we worked with, gosh, I can't think of her name right now.
Joy?
Huh?
The Joy?
No, before
Cynthia
Joy.
Cheddar.
Oh,
Cynthia Jetter. So Cynthia is the one who got me started with Swarthmore years and years and years ago, where we began to talk about, and I'm making a point in saying that because Swarthmore made a commitment even back then to help be transformational in the city of Chester. And so back then we were dealing with issues around housing, we were dealing with issues around crime, we were dealing with how do we rebuild the city and things like that. And Swarthmore stood with us and worked alongside of us. As a matter of fact, I was going through some old information and I realized that one of our first planners that helped us do community planning was Chanel Hicks, who was a graduate of Swarthmore College. And so she had learned about being passionate about communities at Swarthmore, and as a result, was able to help us with a lot of the work that we're doing. And so currently, we continue to work with Swarthmore, and one of the things I enjoy a lot, I airplane a lot, but one of the things I enjoy a lot is the classes that we do where we're allowed to go in and talk with some of the students about Chester and give them a historic perspective. One of the things that gets lost sometimes is where Chester started. And I always say that what you see today is not what made Chester all along. As a matter of fact, because Chester is the oldest city in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, every ethnic group that has ever existed has made its home in Chester. And so people sometimes lose that and they think of it in its current state. But literally from the Russians to the Swedes to the Germans, the Polish, every ethnic group has been a part of Chester and really makes up its history. And Chester is known for when it was in its heyday in the 50s and 60s, where they had a slogan that said, "What Chester makes Chester." And so during that time, you had shipbuilding and all those other things. After World War II, that all went away. And as a result, we have a city that is reimagining itself. And so Swarthmore has been very helpful in doing that. And I love going in and talking to the students about helping us to reimagine what community could look like based on their the things that they've done in their own country. So Swarthmore has a very diverse student body. And so I love the last group that we were talking with because they were from everywhere in the world. I mean, so there were people from Pakistan and from India and from China and all over the place. And I'm like, well, how do you see your community as it relates to the city of Chester? And so we've been working along with Swarthmore to really try to make sure that there's an infusion of technology and an infusion of information. And one of the things that we had an opportunity to do and continue to do is work with students. And so we had an opportunity. So if any of you are working with the business community, let me start by saying that partnering with the business community to do your fellowships and to do your community interaction is key. And I'll give you an example why it is so. I have been working with some businesses that were coming into the community, and they had access to the to the air traffic controlling. And I thought in order to be an air traffic controller, you had to have a PhD and all this other good stuff in order to get into it. And they were like, no, all you need to do is have hand-eye coordination and be able to pass a basic test. So we were able to, through that business, hook that particular field to the Chester Upland School District. And they had 30 some students that actually successfully completed a course to become an air traffic controller. Why is that important? Number one, they didn't need necessarily a college education. Two, they start at $75,000 a year. they end at around 150 to 160 on average, and they only work 20 hours a week. So who wouldn't want that job, right? And that relationship helped to build a whole nother set of curriculum. We've been working with an organization, Power Home Remodeling, which is a national door and window company, but they use drone technology in order to look at homes and things like that. It's a whole nother industry that young people in the city of Chester can get involved in. And so we've been working really very relationally to make sure that we can continue to work with Swarthmore. And a lot of times we bounce things off of Ashley or off of Ben to say, hey, what about this? And how do we do this? And what do we need from an education standpoint or a technology standpoint or just boots on the ground in order to make it all come together. So we appreciate the work, and I'm looking forward to any questions that you have at the end.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jim, for that. I'd love now to hear from Devin Walls, who is in the Indigo Mill Artist Warehouse along with Ben Berger. So Devin, tell us a little bit more about what you do in Chester and your partnership with the college.
First of all, I want to say thank you for having me on this call. And secondly, in reference to the fellows that have just spoken before me, they make it sound so easy. And I just want to say that I don't want to underestimate the work that everybody in this fellowship has been doing, and it's not easy. So the people who are looking at this Zoom right now, I want them to go in knowing that it's going to be some work that needs to be done. It's going to be a lot of relationship building. There are going to be a lot of things that you don't agree with when you're trying to build a partnership. So almost like trying to build a marriage. You know, you don't go in with the perfect marriage. It's something that you consistently work on. So over the years, myself personally, I've been working with the university for a long time. And sometimes we hit speed bumps, and that's the time we step back, we regroup, and then we build upon that speed bump, and we try to eliminate the obstacles that are in our way. So when you go in, be intentional and know that there are going to be some turbulence along the way. Don't be going in thinking that you're going to change things overnight. You got a quick fix, and you got this idea in your head that they need you more than you need them. That's not how you build true partnerships. You got to know the people that you're dealing with. You got to know the needs of the community. Same, we have to know the needs of the university. And you know, I think Ben spoke about it earlier, that it's training that the students go through. And I think Ashley mentioned it as well. And we go through our own training in the community in order to build relationships like this. So I wanted to say that first and foremost. So some of the things that we're working on right now here at Indigo Mills with Swarthmore University have been building on our partnership. Ben and I have a long-term partnership. We're sitting in the studio together right now because we just came from a meeting together. And I think a lot of times when you're building partnerships, you got to get to know who the partners are. You know what I mean? I think that's important. Spending some time with them, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, whether it's outside of the workspace, I think is often important as well. So we've been building a community arts district here in the city of Chester that spans 8 blocks square right now in the Overtown downtown business district. And since we've been in our partnership, we've built a lot of things. So when I start talking about things, sometimes I jump all over the place because there are so many things that have been done. But the one thing that I'm most proud of is the partnership with the university, with Ben, with Ashley, and especially with the students. You know, we have students now downtown just sitting there on their phones doing homework. Some of them pop up into Indigo just to have paint days with us. And I think that's important because it doesn't feel robotic. It feels more organic. And when we were talking about partnering, hold on, I got a call coming in. So the thing that we wanted to make sure that we had these organic relationships, you know, that didn't feel forced. You know, we've worked with other universities in the past, and it was all about the students getting points. And sometimes they'll pop in, sign their name just to get the points, and then they'll disappear. And this has been something totally different. You know, as we went from building one property to the next property, opening up restaurants, maker spaces, artist studios, artist living spaces. I can say that I bounced a lot of this stuff off of Ben, and I probably made some of his hair fall out, because there were things in our community that we didn't know, and we went to our partners with those questions to get answers. And then there were also things that maybe they didn't know that they came to us for answers. And I think just that back and forth, bouncing ideas off of each other, built our community to what it is now. And it forged a stronger relationship with us. And now here in Indigo Mills, we have workspace here that is sponsored by the universities. Students are always here having meetings, and we just had a few environmental justice meetings here. So there's consistent things that have happened because of these relationships. And I just want to say again, it's not easy. It won't happen overnight. You got to go in with good intentions, and you got to go in there open, because a lot of the times, I'll be honest, in my community, we're so used to people coming in and wanting to study us and do all of these different things in our community without actually investing in the people or in the community. They're more coming in to take something and say that they created a model that they could take somewhere else. And a lot of us, we're not playing those games anymore. And with Swarthmore, we didn't see that. We haven't felt that. And it's been building ever since. So all I say is make sure your intentions are right and you have your heart open, your mind open, and you're going with the intention of forming and forging a true partnership.
Beautifully said. And I love, Devin, what you said about kind of this pattern of extraction, where sometimes universities go in and we take and we benefit, but we don't leave anything there. And so we definitely have a different approach with our partnership. So thank you so much for that. And the focus on friendship. Yeah, we're friends. I think we're all friends. I feel that way. So now we'd love to hear from Ms. Barbara Mohammed, who has a very long time history involvement with public housing reform. And Ms. Barbara, we'd love to hear from you about your leadership in Chester and your partnership with the college.
Good morning, and thank you for having me be a part of such a wonderful historical discussion this morning. Swarthmore College as an institution of learning has been in my life for about 60 years. I'm the senior of this group of fellows, and I don't mind being that. I'm glad to be alive to still share in any way that I can to continue to help my community move forward. As discussed by Devin and Jim, the Swarthmore students that have been coming to do their internships, they have come with a different mentality towards how they're going to participate in Chester's well-being. And I think I've enjoyed that in 2024 and in 2025, because many of the students that came, they put their boots on the ground. They worked in the markets, or they worked in the stores. They worked over there with you, Devin. They worked up at the Ruth L. Bennett, which is a public housing site that Swarthmore College gave the first composting machine to that vicinity of public housing, where they could become now a garden that is used to produce fresh food, not just for the community of Ruth L. Bennett, but other families that might need or have, as what we say here, a food desert kind of situation. My relationship with public housing was we fought a federal lawsuit called Carmela Velez versus Henry Cisneros back in the late 89 and on up into the 90s. And we were able to win that federal lawsuit. But even though we did the bricks and mortars part of which needed to happen, because the people were living in de facto demolished conditions, to my interest of what I love to do is mostly participate in human potential. So we used a lot of that money to develop the people. So people came out of that, and Jim Turner usually goes and tells the story more than I do, about how we took about 18 and 19 young men that were former what they call little, I don't know, I hate to even use these terms that they give our community, but they weren't doing right by themselves and they weren't doing right by their communities. So we put them with Mr. James Harper, Senior James Harper, and he helped me with those young men. And to that end, about 18, like I said, to 19 of them took on a different form of life. And then we created the diversity apprenticeship program. We got young men and women involved in construction and potential crafts trades. And they are doing so well today. Now, when I see some of them, they're living in $500,000 homes. They have their families sustained. One of them, or no, two of them are actually teachers at these building trades. So I asked one of them, I said, well, I ain't trying to count your money, but now you got to realize I met this young man at 18 years old. He only had $10 to spend. He told me he's making $275,000 a year at this time. So those are the vital stories that I can share about how Swarthmore and my friend for life, Professor Keith Reeves, I was actually involved in the delivery of his son because he was away at a conference and I was there with his former wife, Tara, and the boy had to be born. So we were there, I was able to experience that with him. And then with the Collins family, one of the Mr. Collins' brothers was my math teacher. So with the current students, with that 50 to 60 year history, with looking at what happened out of the Chester Children's Choir, Chester Children's Choir started actually as a male little choir at the William Penn Project homes. And John came down there with his long hair and everything, and he was out there at Swarthmore, and he got those boys together. They formed that group, and it has gone to where it is historically today. And so you mentioned Cynthia Jetter. She grew up in the Ruth L. Bennett homes. I grew up in Lamoken Village. So the partnerships, the relationships, the fact that Terry Rumsey was not afraid to come into Chester and hit the ground running when we were trying to make political change. Swarthmore's investment and its students' investment into what Chester is becoming. Because Chester's not all lost, where everybody wouldn't be coming here, reclaiming historical sites, reclaiming whatever they felt their part in this great city called Chester, Pennsylvania. I'm grateful for this fellowship. I'm grateful for the work that I've been able to perform. I continue to live a daily life of service. I work at the Chester Education Foundation. I'm the resource navigator. We just opened a whole resource hub recently. You're welcome to come here, visit us, hold meetings here. And I just want us to continue doing good with Swarthmore for
Thank
Chester.
you, Ms. B. We appreciate that. And I was going to say, don't leave out what you're doing at Chester Education Foundation because you've been supporting our 9.
One of the students from your college is in here with me right
Yes,
now.
I know. So there we are. We can't make this stuff up. They're really working and supporting all day and around the year our students and the good work that we're doing together. So thank you for that. And now we'd love to be able to turn our attention to Mr. Corey Long of Making a Change Group. And Corey, please introduce yourself and your leadership in Chester and tell us a little bit more about your role on the council.
Sure. Hi, Ashley, and hi, Ben. Hello to everyone, all the fellows and everyone that's out there watching and listening. I'm Corey Long. I'm the founder and executive director of Making a Change Group. We're based here in the city of Chester, and we're focused on supporting youth and families, stopping violence in our communities, and building safe spaces and real opportunities for our residents. I've been a proud leader here, been proud to serve here in the city of Chester for a few decades. I'm born and raised, but I've been doing my public service work here for at least 2 decades. And our partnership with Swarthmore College has been a big part of my journey. At least for the last 4 to 5 years, I'll say Swarthmore College has been more than a partner, it's been a true supporter of our work. Including now, we currently have a summer program, and Swarthmore's Lang Center has lent space to our summer program where we have a group of young people that are reading, that are learning, that are exploring new sites around the campus. But it's not just about the youth in the program, but it's also giving them an opportunity, a sense of belonging, that they belong on a campus of higher learning. So that's very important to a lot of the young people that we work with. Ironically, one of the reasons why we're utilizing some space for our summer program is because our organization, Making a Change Group, just acquired the former College Access Center from Widener University. We just purchased the building. I'm sitting in the building now hosting, and this building was launched primarily at the Lang Center a little over a decade and a half ago. And so as you speak about Cynthia Jetters and just the innovative projects that were coming out of the Lang Center, this was a project. This property was part of a project that helped many young people in the city of Chester gain access to college. And it had been vacant for, I guess, about 5 years or so, but I'm glad to see that we were able to acquire and continue to plan on doing youth programming for young people in the city of Chester. And Ben Berger, who's also a board member with us at Making a Change Group, had his hand in us acquiring this property as well. In addition, trainings and events we've held at Swarthmore. We've hosted several professional trainings for our staff and events on campus, from trauma-informed care to leadership workshops, has been making a big difference for our organization. Each spring, we speak to the Peace and Conflict Studies course. We share real stories from Chester. Students ask great questions and learn how the community really works. It's one of my favorite ways to connect with the future leaders coming out of Swarthmore College. The Swarthmore student interns, we welcome students here in the city of Chester from Swarthmore. They've helped with research and data. They've supported youth programs, worked on communications and outreach. And even as the last few years since our gun violence intervention program has grown, Ben has connected us with Professor Lee Smithy, who does Delaware County's gun violence prevention data and research, a database and similar focused on real world impact, and sharing community insights and local data for long-term solutions. So in closing, Swarthmore College doesn't just study communities, it stands with us. We're grateful for the partnership and excited for what's next. Together, we're making a huge difference here in Chester and in Swarthmore. So thanks for having me and allowing me to share.
Thank you so much, Corey. And just kind of a round of applause for all of our fellows. We appreciate you joining us today, but really for your ongoing contributions and partnership. There's a lot at the college that simply wouldn't work, or it wouldn't work all that well without you. And so we'd love to transition now to some Q&A, but we just want to thank Campus Compact again for this opportunity to share and to learn with you. We hope that what we shared was helpful, and we're happy to take some questions. And we just have a slide here with our contact information, just because we're getting close. And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
You see that in the Q&A thing there, there's a question from Kara Adams, I think that's at UW, is that right, Washington? Yeah, about compensation. I don't know if you want to, I can read it out, you can probably see it yourself there. And maybe that's something you can address without going into necessarily numbers, because all institutions are different in terms of what the numbers are, but how we've approached scale and et cetera. Want to say anything about that?
I can't see the question, but maybe I think Laura was going to field it for us.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks so much.
Yep. I was you were thinking my same train of thought, Ben. Yes.
Go.
So Kara at University of Washington would really love to know how you compensate partners. And I know this has been a hot topic across our field as for a very long time. Is it the same amount for all partners? Is it a graduated pay scale? Kind of like what that process looks like. Do you think about it from the perspective of, is it based on resources at that organization? And I know this isn't something that just Kara and the University of Washington are thinking about, but I know many institutions really grapple with this. Like, how did you develop the system that you're using, and what does that look like?
Ashley, do you want to speak to that at all?
I'll let you.
We've done this together. We've looked at basically to question lots of different community partners, just like we're doing right now, to see the levels that people have done. So we had the same question that you've done, talked to a number of different institutions in the area, some public, some private. And we developed a model that, yes, it is scaled. We try to compensate people at an hourly rate when they're involved with our students in our classes. And so we have differences between if somebody is doing a presentation that requires presentation, time and prep. There's a certain scale for that. A classroom visit where the person is asking Q&A or welcoming it at their place in Chester for Q&A is a different and somewhat lower number. With institutions, sometimes people who've led institutions have preferred to have us contribute to the institution. Now, we're not a grant-making organization. That's something that I know public organizations may have as well. We're not allowed. We're not seen as being a grant-making institution, but there are things we can do that fit within the college's budget anyway, like marketing, so that we could buy seats at a particular organization's fundraiser, which advertises us. The college is satisfied they've gotten the name out there then, but really it gets funds directly to the institute, the organization. And that's been negotiated on a per organization basis. But for individuals, we do have a scale that's been set with them over time that we want their feedback also, we think is generous. We're fortunate we have the Lang Center's resource behind it that's going to vary by place. But I will tell you this, we've had a budget crunch just like every place else, and we've decided we're going to focus on maintaining things in Chester the way they are. We'll cut some other things if we have to, but we're not going to, you got to, sometimes take from one pot to feed another one. And this has been the most important one for us.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question on that because I anticipate there are probably others wondering who are examining this. Do you have is it a policy document that you have that's kind of like set in stone, or is it something that is flexible that you examine on like a semi-annual basis every couple of years? What does that process look like?
Actually, we've had this thing, haven't we, where it's not just us. The Lang Center is one organization in Swarthmore, but there are other centers and little programs in Swarthmore too that have their own kind of, we've learned over time, because there's siloing everywhere, even at small institutions. Yes. And we've learned, well, they're paying something different, and we are working to try to bring those together for an equity reason. It's not good for anybody if one place is paying more to somebody else. We also want to try to be sensitive. We're not trying to crowd out other institutions, other schools in the area by paying more too. So those are ongoing conversations. And yes, Laura, it's quite flexible and malleable because we want to be able to have everyone have access to the partners in Chester.
And that's what I was going to say.
Could I add something to that? Can I add something to that,
sure.
Please? So as valuable of the compensation, what is more important and what was more important to me, and I sit on a lot of different boards with a lot of different universities, is the fact that Swarthmore actually valued my expertise, and the compensation says that there's a value, but it's really the value of the person and the value of the time. And if I'm sitting in a meeting, and I get, just look at it this way: if you're sitting in a meeting, Corey, is the CEO of his organization. Barbara is a community person. Devin runs several organizations. How much is an hour of their time worth, right? Mm-hmm. So is it $50, $100, $200, $5,000? And so the same way you would value a world-renowned speaker coming in and participating in something, you should have the same kind of value upon the people in the community that you want their information and their input from.
Absolutely, but that is quite right. Actually, our rate is comparable to a class visitor who's a lecturer, or a professor at a different school. That's right. Yeah, thank you, Jim. That was said much better than I had been saying it. Yeah,
very well said. And the value of all of your expertise that each and every one of you sitting here have. Yeah, definitely. We are right at time, but I'm going to say this out there in case either of you would like to maybe send us some follow-up that we can send out to our participants, because there was two questions actually related to your assessment process. So I know that there are people on here who would love to know more about your community partner assessment project. So if there's anything that you can share that we can include in the follow-up email that goes out to all of our participants, I know folks would really love to hear more about that.
Amazing. I'll be happy to. I work on that along with our senior associate director for assessment at the college. And so I'd be happy to share more information in a follow-up.
Great. Well, I want to thank everybody on today's call and all of our panelists. You were all wonderful. I learned so much. I loved listening to all of you. I loved listening to all of the stories. Thank you, Ashley and Ben, for bringing us our panelists. And thank you to our panelists for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here with us today. Thank you to all of our participants for your great questions in the chat and in the Q&A. And please come back and see us for our next Impact Awards sessions as we learn more about all of our amazing award winners from this past year. We will see you next time.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Campus Contact.